Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. Saturday morning, who knows? Coming up on 10 o'clock. But I want to jump on here. I've been saying for the last couple of weeks that I'm going to be doing a new photo boost reference design. And I will, and there's honestly not that much too different to it. But some crazy but very cool things are happening in life. And I'm just losing time on it. And I want to just get you guys a general idea of what I'm talking about on this new build, what it's going to encompass, as well as we can just shoot the shit and talk about anything today. But that's kind of I just wanted to get this out here so someone can go online and more or less kind of see the build. So there are people coming in. Let everyone join in. This was an unplanned stream, but make sure all is good on the audio as well. Okay. So if you guys know the original photo boost reference design, we're talking photo boost designs with the PLC photo boost strips. Originally, we were using the Heatsink USA profiles. Come on, focus. See, small, very small form factor, easy, cheap, but obtainable from Michigan quite easily. The only thing we had to do here is drill holes on each end so that we could mount them to 80/20 extrusion rails on the side, one on each side. Now, with the new photo boost heat sinks, which I've got one here, at least half of one here, with the new photo boost heat sinks, it's not really there's not a perfect way to mount them. Because of where we mount the boards on here with the screws, there's just a little bit, and you can drill through these, and that's what I did in the one that's hanging in my room. You can drill through these just like the reference design, but there's an easier way to do this, and that's really the only change to the reference design at all, is how we're mounting these heat sinks to a frame, or in this case, I'm going to call it a spine instead of a frame. But that's exactly what it is. So the 46-inch heat sinks have a hole in the center that was originally used for PLC and some cable gland stuff. But our homie Loki, you guys all know Loki out there, he came up with this himself. And as soon as I saw it, I said, I don't know why I didn't think of that, because for the DIY world, this is the absolute simplest, easiest way to build the photo boost strips. And the only kicker to it is we're just changing the rails. Everything else about it is the same. I'm going to go over a few things when I do the build video about drivers, because everyone asks 2 drivers versus 1. So we'll get into that in a minute. So I'll go over that. But really, the frame difference is the only difference between the reference design. Everything else is the same. The gland boxes that we use to mount the cables in, the driver recommendations, the number of boards, how we wire them, everything about the build is the same, except the use of this spine right here. So as you can see, this is what would be it's a 10 series extrusion, but it's a 1x3 10 series. You might be sometimes they'll call them like a 60x25 or a 75x25, but it's essentially 3 joined together, not cut up. And this is what allows us to use those center holes on the heatsink right here and go straight into that extrusion with one single T-nut and fasten it down. Now, this is only half of a photo boost design. This is a 300 watts worth, essentially. If I were to put boards and drivers, you got 4 strips on, or 4 heat sinks on here. That would take 8 strips. But as you can see, this is just a longer frame, and we will be adding the rest of the bars eventually, and this is going to go into my room as a 640 watt photo boost system. So long story short, I just wanted to get this out here. We can do whatever we want after this, but this is literally all I wanted to tell you, is that when you're building your photo boost strips, whether you're doing a 4 build, a 4 heatsink build, or an 8 heatsink build, the only difference is going to be how long this spine is. So if this was only a 4 heatsink build, we cut it off right here. You'd have this beautiful spined 4-inch thing. You could put a driver on top here. You can put your eye hooks here, and you have a nice, beautiful balance hanging system. Again, the only kicker here is we're using the standard 1/4 20-inch hardware with a washer. The washer is the one thing that's going to keep the screw from coming through, and that's literally the only kicker of this whole thing. So I think we're probably 4 minutes into it, and I'm more or less done with my spiel. That is what I wanted to show you guys. So I want to be able to, if people are building right now, before I get the actual build video up, use the original reference design for the wiring, all that. But as far as building a frame, whether it be 20 inches long, 24 inches long, 36, 40, 42, 48, 52 if you want, hell, you can order these in 8 feet long. You could have one, quote unquote, one light that runs your whole thing. Now, with that said, I still recommend 2 HLG 320 watt drivers. Now, there's many reasons for this. So let's kind of go into it. I haven't even looked at the chat, so I apologize. I will get into it, but I'm just on a spiel right now, so just hang with me. So 2 drivers versus 1 driver for a 600 plus watt system. That is the question. Why do I recommend 2 320 watt drivers? Main reason is it's constant current in pure series, no parallel configurations, no current hogging. Not that it's an issue actually, but in the grand scheme, if we can keep it single string constant current, that is the most efficient and consistent way to run the strips. The HLG 320 1400Bs, those will run them. But of course, they'll only run 8 strips. So we have to run 2 drivers. Is that really a big deal? People somehow think it is. But when it comes down to it, 1 600 watt driver, 2 320 watt drivers are the exact same price. And if we're talking about Meanwell specifically here, Meanwell 320 watt drivers, ching, ching. Meanwell 600 watt driver. Now, before I get into it, let's just do the basic math. 600 watts is 600 watts. 320 plus 320 is 640 watts. And we're actually getting that dissipation out of it. If we run it on these, we lose a little bit of wattage. Is it night and day? Not really, because for most people, honestly, 550 watts of photo boost in a 4x4 is plenty. So it's no big deal. But what everyone wants is they want 1 power cord. They want 1 power cord. Well, guys, that's not an issue at all, because you can daisy chain your power cords on your 320 together and run 1 power cord from 2 drivers to the wall. So I don't see that personally as an issue, but you guys bring it up a lot. So think about it, but you can still run 2 power cords. Also, I think most of you know that you can also run 1 dimmer for multiple drivers, but I did have someone out there who was doing quite a bit of builds and they didn't know that. So I apologize to them if they end up watching this, but you can use 1 dimmer and 1 power cord to run both drivers. Makes things a lot easier on your wiring. Hell, you could run 3 drivers off 1 power cord or 4 drivers off 1 power cord. Assuming your power cord's big enough gauge at that point. Do remember that your limiting factor on anything when it comes to power is usually your connector and or power cords and how that would translate to your full circuit. So if you got a 15 amp circuit, don't put 15 amps on it. And same with a 15 amp connector. If it's a connector that's good for 15 amps, don't put 15 on it, put 12. For Meanwell, that really grinds my gears here, guys. Meanwell HLG 600s, most of them have 2 DC outputs here. So if you're using 1 600 watt driver, one of the complaints with a 300 is we have 2 lines going to the drivers. Well, with an HLG 600, you still have 2 lines going to the driver. Now, with that said, these are in parallel, meaning if you didn't use one, all the current would go down 1 line. And this cable is good enough to do it, but the way Meanwell designs these drivers is where they connect to the PCB inside the driver and the actual driver design. That's meant to have the load split. So there can be heating up and issues inside the driver if you were to just use 1. Is it a make or break deal? No. But kind of all those factors, consistency and current throughout the boards, a touch more wattage, same price, same amount of wires going in and out of your system. It really, there's almost per se no difference whatsoever. On top of that, you could run a 4 conduit wire and have 1 cable that goes to 2 drivers. That's probably more complicated and I shouldn't even have spoke up about it, but things like that could be done. You could use a 4 conduit with a ground would be ideal, but even just a 4 conduit, you could make a single cable run to a light fixture. Now, Meanwell is not the only game in town, but as far as DIY concerned, they really are, because everyone else is meant for distribution and, you know, quote unquote real companies. I don't like to say that, but you know, minimum quantity orders of 500 or 1,000 drivers for some other companies. Now, I flashed this driver on Instagram a few times. Look at this driver. Okay, this driver, 600 watt Meanwell. I wish I could do this. This looks retarded, but 300 watt Meanwell. You guys want to take a guess at how many watts this driver is? Anyone? I'll give you 5 seconds. 680 watts. 680 watts, 600 watts, 680, 600, 320, 680. This is a fantastic driver. Now, this driver is made by a company called Autech. Oh, now the guesses are rolling in. 700, you're the closest there, nutrient shootouts. 680, and it pushes about 720 worth of current. It's fantastic. It's made by a company called Autech Power. But again, they're a distribution-centered company that's selling to mass people. PLC may use them if they were to build full fixtures. But kind of the nice thing about this, unlike the Meanwhile, we have our dimming lead, and we only have one power out, one DC power out. 20 gauge, I believe it is 14 gauge here. But this is also programmable. Great dissipation, compact case. There's a lot of things going on with it. But I don't know if you guys will ever be able to get it. And so that's why I really recommend the two 320s over a comparable 600 watt driver, because you're going to be dealing with these Meanwhiles. And I've had many more failures as a production company with PLC with these HLG 54s, the 654s, than I have with the 320s. Is that anything set in stone? Not exactly, but that's just my take on it. So I get asked a lot of questions, frame-wise and driver-wise. Why two drivers instead of one? Those are my reasons. So that's my spiel. Anyone who's just coming into this video to realize what the Photo Boost setup is, that's it. Now, all the parts to build a 640 watt Photo Boost unit with two HLG 320 drivers, I have updated the list on pacificlightconcepts.com. So that when you click the reference design where it says reference design or reference design, click here, do that, click there. It takes you to a spreadsheet. I can't put prices on it because they're bastards and they'll like take my account. Anyway, can't put prices on it, but long story short, it comes out to about $828, $830 to build the full 640 watt system with top end of drivers. It'll also give you enough thermal tape to do multiple units as well as Wagos, things like that. So if you were to build multiple fixtures, not just one Photo Boost system, that price could get driven down. Economies of scale, you know how it works. Same thing with the drivers. Now I do understand the drivers are expensive, guys. I understand that. So that's why you think like, oh, a 600, you might be able to get a good deal on it, but you can do it. It's all up to you. But that's kind of the rundown as it pertains to the new Photo Boost design. So again, only real difference is that we're using this spine. And then before I let you go, the nice thing about this spine is instead of doing all our wiring on the ends and going, driver to driver or board to board while the strips or the frame is here, now our frame's in the center and we can do all the wiring right here. So if we were to put a positive from the driver here and a negative from the driver here, we would go negative to positive, negative to positive, negative to positive. Oops, sorry, let me bring you down. So negative to positive, 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 negative to the driver. Very, very simple. Do that twice for two 320 watt drivers, and we're off to the races. Woo! Okay. Chat, what's going on, guys? Aha, 189 of you. What's up? Happy Saturday. Okay, I'm just going to scroll back on the chat, see who's in here. Lone Wolf, you were number one in here. What's up, man? Thanks for stopping by. Nutrient Shootouts, good to see you. Dr. J 303. There's so many. I don't talk to you guys in real life or even online that much, but I do recognize your screen names very often. And if you change your avatars, that'll throw me off. Anyway, good to see everyone. Thank you for stopping in. Let's see if we can be... what do you guys want to talk about? That's about it. I'm not going to run this stream forever, but that's kind of thought. Sans light, what's my thought on Sans light? Very high efficacy light, good design, good parts. I don't really know the price off the top of my head. It was a little pricey when it first came out, but they've been out for years. So overall, yeah, most lights, we're in a very good place. And if you guys go back, and I don't actually even know if they're here because my channel, the original channel got deleted. But if we're talking about one of the Tech Talks, like Tech Talk 2 or something, I said, there's going to be a day that even the worst companies in the world that are using the absolute dog shit cheap diodes are going to be at a level that's fairly decent. And nowadays, the worst lights in the world, I shouldn't say the worst because there's still some slug-based LED systems out there and whatnot from the old like Black Star days. But in general, even kind of the lowest end acceptable lights these days are performing how, damn near what a top end Apache performed at back in 2011 or 12. Granted, it's been 7+ years, so you'd expect that, but that's where we are. So it's a beautiful place to be getting into the LED game for you guys. I've been in it for a long time. I couldn't even imagine without it. But just that fact, obviously we at PLC, we try to build, upper echelon, pushing the edge of performance and output and whatnot. But like I say, even the bottom ones are doing what we wanted to do back in 2012 to 14 for, fraction of the cost. So LED game's good. No, Mars is not making good lights these days still. I'm sorry to tell you guys that. Those are the cheapest 2835s I've ever seen in my life. There is only a matter of time before those go out with cheap bond wires, low thermal performance, and the output is just, it's not there. Granted, it's a lot better than it was in 2012 and what their old lights were, but no, still not supporting Mars or putting them into that category. Sorry. So that is very interesting. I got one thing we can talk about. So you guys have known I'm or PLC's a Cree branding partner, which means doesn't mean really anything other than we are somewhat partnered with Cree, but it's not much of a partnership. So we built these boards, and these are Cree 5630 HEs. Now Cree is coming out with a bunch of new diodes, and specifically 2835s, and there's one board maker that I know is starting to use them. And they're touting some very good efficacies. I will say that, and they are true. I've seen them. The efficacy is there, but efficacy and output to a chip, especially a mid-power chip, is only half of the design or the battle. Now, the top of the line chip on the market today, and will remain that for a good amount of time as I foresee it, is the Samsung 301B and or 301H. Now, before we go any farther, 301B, 301H are the exact same diode. Not similar diodes, not like they do the same thing or this or that. They literally are the same diodes, guys. And if you hear anyone saying otherwise, they are lying out their ass and they are just trying to get you to buy their shit. Now, you can email Samsung, you can ask Samsung, you can ask anyone. These are the exact same chips. They both have the anti-sulfurization coating too. People say, oh, the H has the anti-sulfurization, the B doesn't. No, the B does too. Why? Because they are the same chips. 301s are all made at the same time. At the end of the production line, there's a fork. And one goes into bags that say micromoles on it. The other go into bags that say lumens on it. That is it. Same chip, same data, same output, different ways of reading it for different markets. And that is the only difference in the chips, is the bags that they are put into at the end of the production line. That's it. Nothing else. That's not my opinion. That's not my feeling. That is the absolute facts of the matter, straight from Samsung themselves. Okay? So, quote unquote, Optic Lightings is the one who's really touting this shit, but there's other ones. Fuck them. Completely untrue and trying to get your shit. So, anyway, before I get back, the 301B is fantastic. Now, efficacy is only half the story, but nonetheless, 301Bs are at the top of the food chain for efficacy. But what they're also at the top of the food chain for is they're a flip chip design, which means there's no bond wires. So an LED is a die, and then they have these, you can really see it on like our reds. I have some macro shots. See the reds, you got these two little die that attach to the top of the die. One's a cathode, one's an anode, negative, positive, however you want to look at it. A flip chip design, there's no wires. Now, where these wires came out of, the chip is flipped over and essentially soldered straight to it. Almost like an LED goes to a circuit board. Now the LED die goes straight to the packaged board, essentially, is how it is. Bond wires, these little bonds that are going onto the die, these are extremely, extremely fragile, and they're either made of gold or silver, and they have a high ability to corrode and or have issues with thermal cycling. So if you're in a greenhouse, it's 40 degrees when they kick on, they get up to 130 degrees, they kick off, that, a few times. These bond wires will break. Samsung 301B, that doesn't exist. On top of that, where those bond wires meet the die, that's going to generate heat. Flip chip design, heat goes straight down to the pad, out. So 301B, far superior thermal, far superior resistance to corrosion, thermal cycling, and or any kind of physical shock, because these wires aren't there to like bend and break. And then we get to the anti-sulfurization coating, which really helps for growers and anything. But that on top of it, even if it had bond wires, would keep the corrosion down. No other company is doing a flip chip, anti-sulfurization, lack of bond wires, etc. And nobody's getting to the efficacy level. So that is why we ditched the Cree mid powers. Well, didn't ditch them, but didn't go to the Cree mid powers, and have stuck with the Samsung 301B for quite some time now, and expect to, because it really is that good of a diode. So we're using the best Samsung white, or the best white in the world right now, and the best current red with the XPG3. Osram did just release the Square Gen 3, I believe it is, or Gen 2. 3, Gen 2, Gen 3, the new Osram Square, and they're touting some very, very good numbers. It's not a huge improvement, 4 to 6% over what top bin Cree can do right now. But those won't be out for a little bit. And how Osram works is you buy in bin groups, which means you essentially buy in the top 2 or 3 bins. And you know how distribution works of those. It's a bell curve. You're lucky to get pure top bins. Cree, you can order them. But anyway, that's the spiel. Green Grow Show. I have a package for you that I've been meaning to send out. I haven't forgot about you. I have your DM saved, so I know where to send it. Just letting you know. I also said on Instagram the other day that I was going to give away some prints. I had some little like 8x10 prints of some trichomes and a nugshot. I had to get envelopes for those and some stamps. I will be getting those out to you. I don't know if you guys are on here. Sometimes YouTube and Instagram crowd are separate, but if you were on the Instagram and I said I was going to get you a picture, trust me, I have not forgot about you, and it will be coming. Okay. So what do you guys want to talk about? So you got a couple chats going in, a couple chats within the chats. Nice. Yeah, the autofocus keeps trying to correct itself. I apologize on that. That's just kind of is what it is. It's kind of we could throw it into manual, but then we got to stay super still. So sorry about that. It's just the fact that I'm running the web stream off my DSLR. So, well, technically it's a mirrorless, but that's why it's nice and crispy, and that's why I can show you some things. Let's see if maybe I can fix it for you guys. Close, very close. Problem is also the garage is, no, that's worse. Okay, good enough. It's in manual now. What is a photo boost? A photo boost is a PCB. It's just simply the name of PCB. I'm sure you guys have heard quantum boards. Cutter has their soul strips. Used to be photon phantom boards around. All kinds of things. It's just a name. Long story short, it's a Samsung and Cree combination PCB in a horticulture-specific spectrum. Get around 2.8 micromoles per joule at the board level. No problems there. Sometimes a little better. And with the new, with the top bins that are the new top bin that's somewhat sneaking in pretty consistently these days of the Samsungs, and then the XPG3 Reds can push that pretty much. Long story short, at 1400 milliamps, you pretty much are damn near 3 micromoles per joule. I just haven't updated the specs with the new diodes in there yet. What's the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? I don't know. That is a great question. I guarantee you Google would answer it for you, but great question there. Okay, we could address this. This is a decent question. Haven't seen or heard from Mouse in a long time. If you guys haven't heard, you can head over to ChillTech and read the story. Go to ChillTech LED or at chilltech.com, chilledled.com. I don't know what their website is. Figure it out. He's left Chilled LED. I don't know what the reason is. Sounded like it was somewhat mutual, not crazy. But it just seemed over the last little bit, and this is just my kind of interpretation of it. This isn't Mouse's feelings or anything, so just take this as my opinion. He just seemed a little bit unhappy. Wasn't exactly what he wanted. Obviously, he didn't get his grows up and going. You know, he went from, Grow Mouse, this perfect, nice top of the line room, producing left and right, good weight, to moving into Chill Tech, getting into a lot of customer service, not having a venting process with his growing or anything. And my guess is it just added up to, all right, I got to get out. I got to make myself happy. He's a freaking smart dude. He's going to have no problems getting a job whatever industry or whatever he does, he will be just fine. So long story short, I've seen him lurking on my stories on IG. I probably should send out a text just saying, hey man, hope you're all right. We're all thinking about you, but if you guys have his contact, go ahead. But yeah, just is what it is. He just wanted to get out, so it's fine. Chilled Tech's coming out with some new stuff. The mouse pucks were cool, but Chilled had kind of their, I think Mouse brought the more economical, somewhat like how PLC does, versus Chilled Tech's. Their roots are really high-end, tunable spectrums, a little more pricier, so that dollar per photon value might not quite be as good as someone like Pacific Light Concepts, or even HLG has a good one. But with that said, the Chilled Logic one, the 600 watt with the 5 pucks, that's actually got a really good photons per dollar, dollars per photon. Value there on that one. I think it's second. It's behind the Photo Boost, but that's DIY. It's pretty much the best production one. So anyway, lots of stuff going on. Is what it is. But I think Mouse is okay. Long story short, for all intents and purposes, okay. What business am I in actually? Well, that's a good question. Very good question. Obviously, I'm one of the founders of Pacific Light Concepts, but I do have a day job. I still help PLC out here and there, work on designs, some production management still, a couple things to help them, but I'm not as involved as no one's involved for that, and that's why we don't sell production panels anymore. We did get burned by one very large client that kind of set us back. And then we went towards the DIY market, the Photo Boost designs and some things. And anyway, that's where we're at on it, supporting the DIY world with some components, working on getting more and more support for that. And I'm trying to find a line where PLC doesn't have to buy 1,000 of these right now, because it's just an investment to sit on the shelf that isn't necessary. But I think once this build video gets out, one, the heat sinks will keep selling how they are, but two, that'll open up a little bit more to provide a more full solution with that. See, the thing is everyone wants value, and once you start building these lights pre-production for people, that value goes down and down. We have a $830, $25 build total here. Now, granted, with economies of scale and building these by the hundreds or 500s or whatever, that could be cheaper for sure. But nonetheless, the value, the end dollar amount's going to go up. It's going to be a $1,200 production panel, or maybe, ideally it would like to be a 1,000 watt production panel, but just loses the value. So for right now, that's where we're at. How much deep red should I add to make a difference? Start at 10% of your total output would be the small way to do it. You could add up to 20%. Really depends. You're going to have to do some spectral tuning to do that. It's all going to also depend on efficiency of the diodes you're using. You know, if we're talking like the original Samsung red, Samsung actually has a new red out that's really nice, but the original Samsung red or like an XPE, the originals that were on the photo boost or things like that, those efficacies are different. So, you know, you got to play with it a little bit. Luminous CXMs Gen 3s are better than Cree. That's false, actually. Highly, highly false. Luminous are possibly the worst COBs on the market. Now, I don't say that from an efficacy standpoint because when they're brand new and out of the package, yes, they seem to be pulling slightly higher efficacies and output. Now, granted, they're putting a lot more dye on there. If we're going to get down to dye versus dye, the Cree blue dye is still champion by far. But long story short, the Luminous have an L70 of like, or an L. I think I shouldn't say L70. I believe it's an L80 of like 9,000 hours. Now, it's not much, but essentially that's barely 2 years of use, and you're going to be down to 80%. While the Cree diodes and the Cree CXBs, CMA, CMT, CXAs, all those have a 36,000+ hours. So we're talking about a longevity and consistency in color and output of those. That's roughly 4 to 5 times that of a Luminous. So that is my issue with Luminous. I do not like them for anything that's going to have to rely on reliability, which comes to a usually horticulture environment is where you're going to have issues with that. You're going to have both higher operating temperatures, higher humidities, chemical exposures, all that kind of thing. And Luminous just I can't put my faith in that. There are a few other companies that also are kind of in that same boat if they don't have the longevity and reliability. But so that's kind of the story. You lose a couple percentage on output and efficacy for Cree currently. Granted, Cree CXBs that are still top of the food chain have been out since 2014 or 15. So, you know, how much are we really, you know, how much of an apples to apples is this here? But yeah, so that's my thought on Luminous specifically. I'm not really sure who's using Luminous these days. Maybe, actually, I can think of one off the top of my head, but he does some good stuff outside of that, so no big deal. Does a high CRI include more red? No, actually. So if you're just talking about the percentage of the spectrum, so if you were to normalize and say 80 CRI, this is 100. 90 CRI, this is 100% of it. The 90 CRI is going to have a more red shifted if it were normalized. But if you were to overlay those spectrums, this would be the 90 CRI, and this would be the 80. And this bump where my fingers are up here, spirit fingers, that bump is actually what you're losing. And it's 90 CRIs are essentially, it's not that they add more to them. They do add a little bit more nitride phosphor, which is the red. But what they're actually doing is kind of filtering it out to balance it. So narrowing that spike, narrowing the blue spike, and it's more of a filter. And that's why 90 CRI has lower efficacy in addition to the spectral change, but it also has just less radiometric output. They're getting better and better. There's much less efficacy lost with 90 CRI to 80 CRI than there used to be, but that's kind of the thought. Infinity Fan, do I like it? Pros or cons? Yeah, I do like it. The only major con for it is the wattage. That's it. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not all that much wattage, and it is quieter. It's much quieter than the Hyperfan. Granted, there is a silent version of the Hyperfan that's just essentially wrapped in a duct with some soundproofing on it, and you know you could get that one and pay a little bit of premium, and it's there, but and get the low wattage. But yeah, I like the AC Infinity. I've been using the controller for temp and humidity. So like for my room, I have it, like 83 degrees, it kicks on, brings it down. So it's maintaining like 82 degrees. Also, if there's a high humidity in there for whatever reason, dehue's full or whatever, I mean, it's constantly draining, but for whatever reason, if the dehu were to kick out, the fan will turn on for humidity. So that's nice. But there's some times where I'm like, oh, it's really like, it's daytime. I wish I could set a day and night temperature and day and night humidity, maybe more or less just day or night temperature on the controller for the AC Infinity. So if I'm not using that controller and I'm using a Hyperfan or a or just the speed control version of the Infinity, you can hook that up to TrollMaster. And for me, that's a lot easier because I can control it from anywhere. Because sometimes there's times where I'm like, I need to shut it off. Or sometimes where I turn it on, like I'll go in there in the morning and I'll turn it on so it runs lights off. So it's always circulating air. But then I have no control over it till lights go on later in the day versus if I have it hooked up to the TrollMaster, it could do that. So yeah, I got some plus and minuses, but overall, very, very impressed with it. The hype it's good hype that's around that fan, and they seem well worth it. And for the really small growers, they come in a 4-inch. Hyperfans don't come in a 4-inch, so that's fine. Any recap? Oh, great question, Green Garage Show. Any recap on the Apogee video? If you guys have not, if one of you guys don't know who Apogee is someone who makes very affordable and high-end light measuring and gas measuring, all kinds of measurement instruments. And they're owned and started by a man called Bruce Bugbee. He is the foremost plant physiologist and professor in the world of lighting. I've actually met him a couple times. Robert at Apache Tech was good buddies with him. Robert is Apache's plant physiologist, and that's how they get in with the NASA Ames research and Stanford's greenhouses and all that we used to deal with for them. Very, very cool guy, and he honestly he reminds me of my grandpa so much. His face and his voice, all about it. But anyway, different story. Apogee's starting to release some fantastic videos, and they've been doing it for a while. They had one really good one that talked about solar panels and LEDs and the efficacy, and it basically concluded that we'd need 5 acres of solar panels to grow 1 acre of food, and that's at a food crop density of light, not a cannabis density of light. So that was very interesting. But the newest video is called Cannabis 101, and it is all about cannabis, some myths, some this or that about light. And my recap on it is it's everything I've been saying since 2012. Granted, I learned a lot of this from Bugbee and from Robert and from Apache, and that's where all my education came, was from on the academia side of light. And anyway, Bruce's Cannabis 101 just really emphasizes the fact that cannabis is not a magical plant when it comes to growing. It may be a magical plant when it comes to its properties and what it can do, but as far as growing, it is not a magical plant. It has this very similar requirements to many highlight C3 plants. And overthinking of it is not, the overcomplication that some people in the industry with their spectral tuning and their output and this and that. He kind of essentially debunks that and again says what we've been saying the whole time, PLC. Photons first. Photons are what matter. Light output is everything. Light quality is second, third, maybe even fourth on the list after that. And that was really the big kind of takeaway from that, is that light quantity is king over everything, and the fact that cannabis will take more light than almost any other crop in the world. So all that combined, plus some other cool tid facts about cloning, where he says they've been studying clones in low light versus full, 1,000+ micromoles, and there's no difference. I've noted that for a while, and I just put my trays into my bedroom with nothing else, or with everything else, and don't have any like special racks back here that have just a single bulb. That was a nice finding, as well as kind of to get back to that quantity is better than quality when it comes to light. No, light recipes are not key. That's the whole point of this video here, buddy. Light recipes are not key. And yes, 1% or 2% sounds very good when you do a one-time comparison, this or that, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a significant finding. And quality, aka light recipes, do not do what they're more or less claimed to do. It's the light quantity that's producing this. Now, granted, there's some photomorphological effects of increasing blue and whatnot, but again, it's very, very minor when we start to look at the difference by scientific. How many deviations has this, moved from control? That isn't just not quite there. So that's what that comes down to. International shipping with PLC, that's something that we get asked all the time, and we just don't do it. Long story short, it costs too much to send. The main reason, there are some legality. Certain countries have different legalities when it comes to electronics coming into it. Even if it's just PCBs, not a power system or anything, there are some customs and regulations that are tough to deal with. Now, it's not worldwide, but what is worldwide is the cost that it takes to, one, ship it to you, and two, ship it back if there were an issue. Now, we test all our boards in the factory as well as back at the shop down in Carlsbad when we get them. But it's not to say that bouncing around or shipping across the sea or this or that isn't gonna, maybe break a red diode off or this or that or anything. Then to ship those back and forth becomes a cost, and PLC is just an extremely low margin operation, and that's why the boards are kind of priced how they are. It's just not 100% worth it. Now, we do ship occasionally to, I help you guys out in Canada a lot. People will be like, hey man, I'm just in Canada, I really need to. Email me, let me know what you want. Email PLC, sales@pacificlightconcepts.com, joe@pacificlightconcepts.com. Email us. Sometimes make exceptions, but if you're doing it for 2 strips, like, I'm just going to be real, it's not worth it for 2 strips. But if you're getting 16 strips and heat sinks and this and that, I'll gladly try to help you out. So mostly for my Canadian friends up there, across seas is a little different, but Argentina, maybe some people, 100 strip, figure it out. We'll try to make it worth it for you. Your PLC 6 is still kicking ass. Had it for some time now. That's great, actually. There's a guy on Instagram, Ben Vaughn, who's had his for many years, and he actually has had some COBs go out. Here's one right here that went out. You can see it's fried. He's got the original one with the single HLG 600 driver. So anyway, he grows consistent crop after crop after crop, and I think he's like 3 years in with it now, and it's like the PLC 6 worked out fantastic. And as far as production lights go, it's one of the best ones we've ever produced. The actual absolute best was our first light, CX300. It was air cooled, but we used some really good fans on it, and that would have been the weak point. And knock on wood, they're actually all out of warranty right now, so I can say this. Knock on wood, the fans are all more or less all lasted. So that was nice. Well, someone asked, you can build a full 8-bar, basically asking, is the extra $200 or so worth it to upgrade to a photo boost system over, say, a Samsung, Q strip, F series strip, whatever kind of standard white offerings there are. No, I don't think I don't have too many of them. But here's a not floppy dong, 2mm PC, 2mm PCB, 1mm PCB. In addition, yes, there are a good amount of diodes on these double strips, but when it comes to single strips, Samsung, these still have more Samsung whites, even if you didn't use the reds, still more Samsung whites on these than there are on the, I believe it's called the L06 boards from Samsung. So they are not exactly apples to apples in the diodes you're getting, and thus, even without the reds incorporated, you're getting a higher efficacy out of the photo boost. Now, with that said, we did run a little bit of a side-by-side. It got completely smacked in the face by mold at the end of the run. The interesting thing was the photo boost side actually took the biggest hit from the mold, and in the end ended up yielding 3 ounces more on a tray. So they both were pretty close to 2 units a tray, and actually the photo boost was at 2 units a tray, and the white was lower at like 1.7. Long story short, photo boost did pull 3 ounces more per tray, It was a one-time deal. We didn't repeat this experiment, but it was a one-time deal of 3 ounces more per tray, less larf, and I forget the rest of the data, but more importantly, the 3 ounces per tray of main top buds was the key. So how much of a value is that to you? Is that $200 or $300 one time so that you can have 3 extra ounces for the rest of the longevity of the unit, or even 2 or 1 or 4 or 5 ounces more? That's up to you. But from my experience and why we put them in there is an extreme value to that extra, to that specific 660 general area red. Both in photomorphological and the way the plants seem to grow, and the way they're diverting energy into certain biomasses, whether it be branches versus main stems, or just the final weight. So yeah, I do believe, and the data is pointing that it's worth the value. But again, that's up to you in the end. What about the soul strips? Well, if you go back at the beginning of this video, I'm not going to go into it too much, but the soul strips are using these Cree diodes, whether it be 5630s or now starting to go into the 2835s. They are just not a very good horticulture specific diode, if I were to say myself. They'll do fine. There shouldn't be any, honestly, there really shouldn't be any major issues. But if we're talking what's really meant to go in a horticulture environment and what's meant to push top efficacy for a long time versus what shows up really good on a spec sheet and maybe in the first sphere test looks really good, but that's my take on anything using the Cree diodes. And that's coming from me. I'm a Cree branding partner. We gave Cree all our information, blah, blah, blah. We have, marketing abilities with them. There's not much value to that thing, I'll tell you that. But nonetheless, I'm always up on Jonathan Moore, email me. I'm up in Orange County, and our production facility is down in Carlsbad. So we usually can make it work either way. So yes, you can. And if you want heat sinks, it would save you quite a bit. Any of you guys who are out there in Southern California, local pickup is totally doable. Just email me, DM me, whatever you want to do. We can work it out. Because there's some times where honestly, like I'll ship some photo boosts to like someone who's literally like down the street from my house or down the street from the factory or something. And it's like, man, do I really want to even like, you guys paid for shipping, so I ship them. But like the thought comes across of like, well, fuck, do we even ship them? Just drop them off at their house, refund them the shit, So yeah, local pickup's totally cool. Is underlighting necessary? No, underlighting is not necessary by any means, and underlighting is not recommended. I would never recommend underlighting because plants can only photosynthesize from the bottom of their leaves like 7 to 10% efficiently, as where from the top they're closer to the 91. Extreme efficiency. So side lighting, yes, because you're getting the actual top side of the leaves, and the leaves will turn so that they face the light. And even if you underlight, the leaves will flip over on the bottom. That's what you'll notice, is the leaves will literally flip over and the top sides of the leaves will now be pointing down at the light. So underlighting, no. Side lighting, yes. Beneficial, not necessary. Yeah, what's up? No, I'm just talking to random people on the internet.
Like on YouTube?
Yeah. I wanted to explain the new photo boost design and whatnot. That'd be insane. Okay. Pacific Wife Concepts. Oops. Owner of Electric Sky talked about diodes losing phosphorus coating when not covered by a lens. Is there any truth to that statement? There is somewhat truth to that statement. The amount that they lose, that's up in debate. It all is based on environment, temperatures, many things. But that, if we go back to the 301, anti-sulfurization coating, no bond wires. It's really that anti-sulfurization coating is going to keep that phosphor consistent over time without any kind of degradation. So that's the key. So yes, certain diodes may have certain issues, but that statement's also reaching very, very kind of far to, to put others down to say that they're superior because of lenses. With that said, lenses are going to sacrifice 10, usually closer to 20% of output. So you got to have 20% output more to add the lens to then be on par with something that doesn't have a lens, which is why you can use something like this that's meant to be exposed. And even Cree's XPG3s, not the reds, but the XPG3 whites, they have an anti-sulfurization coating in the S4s. So anyway, lots to do. Slight truth of that, also slight bit of marketing scare. But what's the name of that? Oh, someone already got it for you. What's the name of that light measuring equipment? Apogee Instruments is the name of it. It's owned by Bruce Bugby, but someone got you in the chat, I see. Thank you. Glenn P, do the new 660s? Yeah, they did change efficiency at all. I haven't updated the data, the data spreadsheet on the website for it, but yeah, the new 660s took the efficiency up from around 2.8 or 2.82 or whatever to 297. So very close to 3 micromoles per joule at the 1 amp to 1.4 amp range. So very, very close. But those are all 25C kind of numbers. So really now at operating temperature, it kind of acts how it did at 25C prior. So it's pretty consistent. Yeah, Photo Boost strips cannot be compared to Bridgelux strips in any way. It's just there's no apples to apples in that. If you really want to get down to it, you could do dollars per photon. Would be your closest. How much are you spending for how much are you getting in output? But that's the other issue with apples to apples is we're just never going to. If there's no 660 in there, that's the issue with the value because the 660 diodes on there cost like 70% of what the white diodes are on there. So 4 red diodes cost me almost as much as 96 white diodes. That's the value and the difference of that. Are we ever going to be able to keep them in stock? Yeah, they're actually fairly much in stock. They're like only 2 weeks back ordered right now. So like everything's just moving forward. If you order today, you might get it on the next batch, which is shipping this week. So there's boards online right now. So if you guys are in here reading this, go online. Boards are online. They're there. Go buy them. They will ship out this week. So it says back ordered till end of January. Guess what? We're on January 25th. They're going to ship out this week. They arrive Monday. We already have more components going back to the factory, and that's a 2-week turnaround time. So we're 2 weeks out on them. We worked with Samsung to get stocked. The only issue we would have had, we were hoping to get these out a week earlier in January, but our board manufacturer fucked up on the UL label on here, and we had to send them all back and had to have the PCBs rebuilt. Nothing wrong with them mechanically or electrically, but just certification wise. So how many would you need to fill a 5.5 by or a 5 by 2.5 foot tent? The best thing I can say is it's anywhere from 0.65 to 1 strip per square foot. Now with the Photo Boost 16 strips in a 4x4, that's 1 per square foot. And that'll give you intensities on average. You know, if you want to average your PPFD, you're going to be in the 1200 PPFD range on that. Plenty potential there, but could be dimmed down. With that said, you could do a little less and do like 12. Let's get a calculator. 12 divided by 16, 0.75 boards per strip. I guess that was easy math when I say it out loud, but 3/4 to 1 full strip per square foot of growing areas is a good kind of baseline to go off to. It'll get you where you need to be. The spectrum is not 35K. If you guys have seen my videos, and actually you'll see it in this run. So I'm going to build this Photo Boost with the new Photo Boost, same 3K base, all that will go into the room, just how the original Photo Boost is. The one next to it, that's a 4K base. I don't like the 4K at all. It does not veg very well. I've never liked 4K. I don't know why I keep coming back to it and trying to fuck with it, because it never works as well as 3K when it comes to actual growing production, whether it be vegetative speed, flowering production, everything about it, quality. The 4K never does it. It just really doesn't. It looks cool. It's a little whiter looking. It's nice to view, but yeah, it just doesn't quite do it. So we will definitely not be going to 4K. Yeah, 3K is still the best. 35K, we flirted with a little, but I don't like how they make 35K. If that makes sense. The added green phosphor in there is not needed. And the way that they pump it is, anyway, different story, a little more technical, but yeah, 3K base with 660 has been by far the best production spectrum by a good amount for all intents and purposes, both flowering, vegetative, quality, has been the best. So that's why we've stuck with it. We're a warmer spectrum than everyone else. And there's a reason for that, because we have actual results behind it. 27K, you lose a little bit of efficacy. I just don't want to lose. And I don't think it's necessary when we're adding 660. So if anything, I would go to 90 CRI. If anything at all, I would go to 90 CRI. Like I was saying at the beginning of this show, efficacies of 90 CRI have improved. So there's not a huge loss. And I'd like to flirt with it. Maybe a half 90, half 80 checkered board mix. There's thoughts on it. How much value is it going to add into the end? I don't know. That's the real question here. And based on the testing we have done with 90 CRI pure white spectrums, I don't know if it's going to be even worth it. But just based on the science and the technology of 90 CRI improving, that would be where I'd go. We're not, what do I see numbers of efficiency topping out at? I mean, we're at the 3.0 mark, basically, more or less, floating between 2.6 and 3.0. I think eventually we'll see 3.0 at the full system level, but can only go so much farther after that. Now, a 100% red 660 LED could produce, if it was 100% efficient, 5.5 micromoles per joule, or 5.543, blah, 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 blah. 5.5 micromoles per joule. Fantastic. The issue is a blue LED could only produce at a maximum 100% efficiency around 3.7 micromoles per joule. Now, why are we saying blue, and what's the importance of it being a blue LED? Well, white LEDs are a blue LED that then is filtered, or it's actually, I shouldn't say filtered. Light is converted with phosphor excitation, and then it's released. But nonetheless, that 3.7 of the actual blue dye is going to be the limiting factor of a white. Well, we're at 3.0 micromoles per joule with a potential 3.7, right? Let's just do the math here. We're at 81% efficiency possibility at the chip level for these white LEDs. I don't see it going much higher than that at all. Maybe it does. Maybe it gets to 80 or 85, 90%, but not in the next 5 years. That's just, I think we've hit a plateau when it comes to white efficacy. And I think that plateau is hit first by Samsung and now others. So more are getting to this plateau, getting to the top of the mountain. But I think everyone's going to hang out here for just a little bit before they continue on. So that's my thought. We could take pure red. We take some pure reds that are getting very, very efficient and make some crazy, micromole per joule numbers. But how much good is that going to do you for a plant growth light? So that's kind of it. Blue is just a white with phosphor coating. No. Blue that's the exact opposite. White is just a blue with phosphor coating. Like, I don't know, like, wish I had a diode, but like if we were to if you scratch off this yellow, the yellow that's in these white diodes, if you scratch off the yellow, there's a plain blue dye under there. Would 3K/5K simulate true daylight? No. 3K plus 5K is 35, or what is that, 4K? That's what it comes down to. If you put half 3K diodes and half 4K diodes, they are slightly different efficiencies, so it doesn't come out to a perfect 4K. It'll most likely come out to around a 40, like 4050, 41K, maybe a 3950. But if you're mixing white spectrums, they do actually just average out. Maybe not exactly to the number on 50% exactly, maybe 53%, 50 or 48%. But essentially it is just an average of the two spectrums. It's not magic. So that's the thing. Why is red more efficient? Red is not necessarily more efficient, but red has the potential to output more micromoles per joule. And the reason for that is I always get these confused. It's either Algorand's constant or Planck's constant, but essentially we have nanometer times lambda will give you your photon per watt there. So as you increase by nanometer, that factor goes up. So a blue at 400 times lambda is only going to be 400 lambda, we'll say, as where 680 nanometers is going to produce 680 times lambda, lambda being the constant there, and that nanometer being the factor that it goes up by. So a blue has much more energy. So we're talking same energy here. So for 1 watt of energy, a blue produces 3.7 micromoles per joule. For 1 watt of energy, actual output, not into it, but actual output out, a red will produce 5.5. The issue is a red diode may only actually be 65% efficient, and a blue diode or a white diode is 80% efficient. So that's where the differences are. They're not actually more efficient, but they have more potential to have a higher micromole per joule. But in the grand scheme of efficiency, if we're talking about energy in versus energy out, they're all equal. The next strips, there are strips online right now, guys. Once again, strips are online right now. You can feel free to leave. I would not be hurt if you guys left this chat or this stream. I'm probably going to end it soon anyway, and went and checked out photo booths if you want them, because they are online right now. They will ship by end of next week. If you order, you guys will be the last order, so you'll be the last ones to go out. But nonetheless, most likely you order today, it'll ship out by Friday, and that's that. After that, there'll be more strips 2 weeks, 3 weeks out after that, 2 weeks out after that, yada, yada, yada. If it slows down at all, the problem is I shouldn't say a problem. It's a fantastic problem to have. But, when you have a few thousand boards coming in, 3 to 5,000 boards coming in, and someone goes, oh yeah, I want 750, or I want 1,000, or oh, 3 guys that I want 400. All of a sudden it starts chipping away. And that's what's been happening a lot of times. And the thing is because it's taken us a lot of time to roll these out, some of those have built up. So yeah, anyway, long story short, you order today, they will ship out next week. Does spreading your light bars out reduce the par? No, if it depends what you mean by par. I'm guessing you're actually talking about PPFD at the light level, but no, technically the par, the total output, doesn't change no matter what you spread. If it's a 1700 micromole total light, it's going to have 1700 micromoles no matter where you spread them out. Now, if you condense them, if you were to say, let's get an Allen wrench and do this. So work with me. So say this is a par meter. This Allen wrench is a par meter, and we hold it a foot above. Now, right now, say we get 700 or we'll just say 1,000 micromoles because it's or no, we'll go the other way. We'll go 500 micromoles right now because it's very easy. That means that all the light coming out of these here. So we're coming out here. So some of this light's not going to hit the sensor, but the light going this way will hit the sensor. Some of the light going this way will hit the sensor, not hit the sensor. You get the point. That's going to be a certain PPFD. All that light's going to go somewhere. It's going to find the ground. It's going to find the plants. But based on where the sensor is, it's going to be 500 micromoles. If we say move these, ooh, that's hard. Sorry. Say we move these, now we put it over there. The likelihood that all the light from these bars is going to hit the sensor is more likely. And same amount of total light, but now that these are closer together and less spill is going to get away from the sensor, you'll have a higher quote unquote PPFD. But again, PPFD only means right here. So if your canopy is this whole length, what happens if your sensor's over here? So you build the light, especially when it comes to photo boost, you build the light for the environment. That's why on a 4-foot wide tray, I only use 40-inch frames. These are 46-inch bars, so we get the most coverage end to end, and there's the least spill this way. There's more crossover this way. We use a 40-inch bar here so that this light that's coming out here going outside the unit is still going to catch the canopy that's this big. Light's this big, canopy's this big. That's the idea. Yes, go back to the very beginning of this video. I start off the video just kicking into the full Photo Boost design. Now, what you have here with the Photo Boost heatsink is they have a hole right here in the center that was meant to be used. Was meant to be used for a cable gland situation. This is how it was originally meant. Have a cable gland, 2 strips, bam, bam, cable goes up. Works great for production lights. People are hiding their wires, fine. But when it comes to putting it in a frame, not so much. And I think there's a better, I know there's a better use of these holes, of this hole right here. You can see the hole. And that's to simply take a 7/8 1/4-inch screw or 1/4-20 screw, 1 1/4-inch washer, right through the center, and a T-nut on the back. And that'll slide right into the single channel, or the center channel, and you guys would be off to the races with your Photo Boost builds. There we go. And then you can spread these out as you wish, as evenly, as densely. You could have more on the sides, less on the center. It's all up to you on how you want to spread your light. But that is the best way to do it. Do I think light movers are productive? If you use them smartly. And for me, that means very little movement. You're never going to be able to make one light appear as if it's 2. So if you had a 4x8 and you think you could take one light and move it tray to tray and be effective, it's just not the truth. And the reason is because photosynthesis is a quantum process. So we have 1700 micromoles that gets put out. You only have 1700 micromoles worth of photons to have chemical reactions and convert and fixate carbon into actual biomass. That's the issue. So if you move that, you're just going to distribute the ability across the plane. Where I think they're very good is this light mitigates it. For a system like this, it's not going to do you much good because we're going to spread it so wide. But for like a, I don't know. For something a little more like this is a 300 watt, but imagine this was a 600 watt light. This light would do much better over a 4x4 if it was moved 6 inches this way, 6 inches this way, 6 inches, 6 inches, 6 inches, 6 inches, but not 4 feet, 4 feet. Hope that makes sense. The other thing I really think light movers would be good for is back to side lighting. So say we have a 4x8. Maybe you don't want to put 300 watts of side lighting on both your things. That's 600 watts. So you have 600 and 600, 650, 650, 1300 plus another 600. It's a lot of wattage. But say you take 300 watts of side lighting and move it over that 4x8 canopy. That's going to be beneficial because the side lighting is not as crucial as the top lighting. So, yeah. Yeah, you'll never be able to turn one light into two with a light mover, but you can improve on one light's coverage within reason. It's, again, not going to be magical. One day you might see that side lighting idea in my room. I actually have a perfect rafter to run it alongside the 4x8 there. I'm just working on I'm working on some fan things. I may get a vertical air solutions air movement system for my room. It's a little it's pricey as fuck, I'll say that, but it would be well worth it. So we'll see. Okay, guys, it's coming up on 11 o'clock here. I think we've covered it pretty well. I wanted to get this video out here to show everyone out there what design photo boost is about with the spine. Again, thank you, Loki. I'm not sure if you're gonna watch this whole video, but 100% of the idea goes out to Loki. You can also get this in black or silver. This new frame system is the only major difference between the original reference design. Okay, one last thing. Okay, just to double check. Perfect. There's plenty more questions. I'll try to jump in here. I have photo boost videos to come here, quote unquote, to come. Hydrolock irrigation system needs to go in tonight. I actually flipped the plants into flowers, so I need to do the hydrolock video ASAP. And I also need it in there because I fucking... what's in my Starbucks cup? Venti vanilla latte. I'm a fucking chick when it comes to coffees, but they're delicious. Love sugar. So hydrolock irrigation video, first week of flower or first days of flower / first week of flower video, and the photo boost build video will all be on there. Any of you guys who are asking about this right now at the very end, go back and watch this video again. It's got all the information about this photo boost. If not, go to the website, pacificlightconcepts.com, to the photo boost page, the reference is neat on that. Yeah, maybe we'll reach out to Mouse, just make sure he's doing okay. And who knows, maybe he's up for a tech talk and we'll give you guys straight from his mouth what's going on. So thank you guys for hanging out. It's a nice showing. I feel like I haven't been live in ages. So thanks for hanging out on a Saturday morning, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.